You're listening to the Gather Gurus podcast, the show for marketers and event leaders who want to create experiences people actually remember. We talk experiential marketing, event strategy, and modern attendee engagement. Today's episode is brought to you by GoGather, your experts in event management and strategy. Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Gather Gurus. I'm thrilled to be here with one of my favorite people in the entire world, Shannon Fouts. Shannon is a project manager for GoGather and has just a really amazing and unique experience, kind of that behind the scenes look of what an event planner goes through on a day-to-day basis, a month-to-month basis, even a year-to-year. Shannon's had an amazing start to 2026 already, and looking forward to just kind of peeling back that curtain a little bit with Shannon and learning a little bit about the different clients that she's already worked with and what else she's got coming up. So hi, Shannon. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
So what's it been now? 3 years at GoGather? Time flies, right?
I'm getting close. June will mark my 3 years at GoGather. So it's been a great ride and journey, and it just continues to get better.
Amazing. Yeah, well, never a dull moment, right? 3 years. I think we threw you right into the fire from the get-go, and I don't think things have slowed down since. Your year's already kicked off pretty quickly. Walk us through 2026. What's been going on? Where have you been in the world, and what's coming up?
Yeah, 2026 came in really hot. Lots of big, exciting programs to plan throughout this year, but it started off with my biggest program to date. I had a large client that was in Nashville at the Gaylord Opryland, about 3,000 people. We had a whole buyout of the place, and we accomplished a very big undertaking. You know, we had over 9 general sessions, 8 awards dinners, team building, breakout sessions, you name it, including some offsite fun as well. So it was busy, but a great way to kick off the year and just continue to carry that momentum.
That's amazing. Congratulations. 3,000 people, right? 9 general sessions. How does one person sort of wrap their brain around something like that?
You know, I call it mental gymnastics. There's a lot of staring at screens and trying to figure out what goes where. And it's almost like it's a big puzzle that we have to do as planners. But that's why we work with our internal team, and we really rely on our vendor partners to kind of make it make sense. And how do we all accomplish this common goal that we have, which is executing a fantastic event? So it was a lot of long hours, but it was very worthwhile to see it all come together.
Yeah, we love that. I mean, for us, and you know this, it's always about that team, right? How do we bring together, it's right there in the name, GoGather, the right team together to obviously to produce these incredible events. Obviously, 3,000 people, Gaylord, Nashville. Anything else? What stands out about those first few events of this year for you, would you say?
I would say, you know, just getting to really see how events are trending in 2026. You know, this as we've come away from COVID and virtual events, and people are really seeing the value of in-person events and meetings. I just feel like each event I've seen from even late 2025 to early 2026, the emphasis is about getting people together, having people learn together and connect. And it's just so cool to see it on varying scales, whether it's an 100-person event or a 3,000 person event, and just seeing that impact that these events can have, and just bettering, you know, all of us as event professionals and attendees and clients. I feel like we're all seeing that really positive impact.
Yeah, that was amazing, especially for this one in particular. Some insight there for the listeners. This was our first, not only one of our largest events ever, but our first go around with this particular client. And so how do you sort of build that relationship? Obviously, it really depends on a trust and sort of an understanding of shared goals and objectives. How do you go about sort of starting those new relationships and making sure that everybody's sort of aligned, or certainly us and our staff is aligned behind what it is that the client's trying to ultimately achieve?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of what GoGather does and what we emphasize is really how to become a confidant and a source of trust for our clients. And so a lot of that early stage is really like meeting with them, asking them questions, trying to understand what matters to them and why this event needs to be successful. And so I feel like a lot of my job sometimes is to kind of play detective a little bit and try to figure out what makes someone tick, but also what could really make them happy. So this client specifically, you know, having worked with a different event partner, it's interesting to come in and try to, you know, almost court them a little bit. But honestly, it's really a rewarding process, because then when you're together on site, whether it's at a site visit or at the actual event, you can feel those connections, and it just really helps the planning and execution go really smoothly because you've laid down the groundwork of building that relationship.
That's really interesting, right? We talk about that a lot. The fact that we don't necessarily start with the planning part, right? It is, as much as we think, hey, it's 3,000 people, we've got to get started and implement our systems and our process to pull this thing off. Sounds like what you're saying is, no, first we have to kind of get in there and understand them and their motivations and what's driving them and what challenges they have. And maybe that planning part has to come a little bit later. Would you say that's kind of fair?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree, because I think if you seek to understand before you kind of put the cart before the horse, you're actually mitigating future conversations and issues where if you make an assumption or you feel like you might know the program just by looking at a hotel contract, you really don't know until you do that research and that work to understand. And that way you're just setting yourself up, you're setting your client up and all your vendors up for success.
Amazing. Yeah. And I can say, you know, we're often tempted as planners, right? That logistics mindset. Okay, well, I've got my checklist and let's just jump right into that. But I love what you're talking about, that importance that it's not a one size fits all. It's not an event in a box. Every single one is unique and different. Speaking of that, unique, different, anything from either early 2026 or 2025, what was kind of your favorite event? What was kind of the, beyond, of course, the 3,000 people and seeing 9 general sessions come together? We could talk about that one for hours, I'm sure. What else? What kind of jumped out at you is even just your personal favorite from 2025?
Yeah, it's hard. Our events are kind of like our kids, so it's hard to pick a favorite. So if any of my other clients are listening, know that they're also my favorites. But I did have a really fun group last year in Las Vegas. It was a franchise organization. And part of the challenge of that event was to incorporate recognition and awards and fun and a live trade show and all these different elements. But one of the biggest things they did is they wanted to implement gamification, which was something that GoGather had pitched them on in the sales process. And so I got the fun job of making that happen and come to life, which was a first for me. And over the course of the 9 months of planning, it really came together as this really incredible game show interactive element where the client actually did pre-event competition and scoring and really built that momentum and excitement for the attendees. So then when it came to be at the event in Vegas, we had a Final Four, we had a live Jeopardy style, it was crazy, but it was so fun. And to work with our AV partner, who also was a part of the planning, and how do we do the CO2 cannons and how do we do the lights and really make it feel like a legitimate show. So those that weren't participating on stage still had that really cool experience. It was just fantastic. I still look at that one and it makes me smile because it was so fun. And we had a Elvis impersonator on stage giving out the awards, which was just so Vegas, but also just so fun.
I love it. I love it. And I love the part that you snuck in there. Like, this idea was pitched to them in the sales process and I got to execute. That's my favorite part, right? Is being able to ideate, and just kind of brainstorm with the clients and understand what is it that they're trying to accomplish. And to build on what you were saying there, that particular account, obviously I was involved in the sales process there, and that was an entirely new executive leadership team. So another sort of giant leap of faith that these folks had with us to say, hey, we're coming in, we're sort of taking on this new leadership role within our organization, and here's our opportunity to really kind of put our mark on this thing and sort of set the stage, set the standard for what's to come. And yeah, you and the team, I mean, incredible work just executing on that. And of course, those folks are coming back. So we're looking forward to figuring out how, we raise that bar, which is always the challenge, right? How do we continue to make these events impactful, right? So there's obviously, like we talked about earlier, so many different moving parts during a program, so many sort of logistic things that have to come together. But ultimately, is to the attendee, that's the sort of behind the scenes. What are the things that you see that are creating an impact for attendees? You mentioned the gamification. Obviously, that's a big one. Are there other examples where you see sort of large impacts that are sort of moving and motivating and connecting with your attendees?
Yeah, I think there's so many opportunities to really drive that impact, and it depends on what the client's looking for and what their goals are for that specific event. But I've seen keynote speakers that come through the crowd, and you see grown men crying by the end of it, and you have that moment of saying like, "Wow, I'm going to take that home with me," or creating moments where people can really like connect and have a good time and kind of tear away the walls of, corporate America and feel like, oh my gosh, like we're just in this experience. Cause I think that's what events can do for people, is really drive like that feeling of like, this is a once in a lifetime experience that I'm having and I'm sharing it with others. So I don't know. I mean, I've seen it with, different dinners and offsite activities, or whether it's just in like a networking suite that we build for someone where it's just a space away from the crowd to like have that one-on-one connection. It's just fun to kind of brainstorm and figure out what those opportunities are for each different event.
For sure. And so often we see planners that maybe get bogged down, right? Because there's that long list of logistics. There are the contracts and all the different suppliers and just so many things to sort of take away your attention and maybe ultimately distract you from what the actual attendee experience is. How do you deal with that? How do you make sure that while you have to get sort of all of these things done, how do you make sure that at the same time, what's really important is that experience?
Yeah, a lot of what we try to do is, obviously site visits are a huge component where you actually get to walk that attendee path and put yourself in those shoes, whether it's on my perspective as the planner or the client's perspective, because sometimes they're not thinking about those minute details of what does it look like coming to registration and then to the general session and all the different areas that an attendee can touch throughout an event. And a lot of that also coincides with building out an agenda that makes sense, and an agenda that isn't over packed with everything under the sun, because people are people, we can't do everything, and people get tired, and being on site and at a conference can be exhausting, honestly, because they're long hours and long days. So really trying to be mindful of agenda and focusing on what's impactful and what's important to that specific group of attendees is really something we try to implement over here.
Yeah, and again, I'll push back or build on what you've said there, and say that it really does come down to that team, like you said, going on that site visit and ensuring that we align with the right partners and the right people, and are able to communicate those big picture goals and objectives, and rely on people to execute in the areas that they're passionate about and that they're able to sort of shine within. So yeah, again, all about bringing those people together. So for 2026, never a dull moment as you look ahead to the rest of the year. What are you most excited about? Any destinations that you're thinking about? Any programs? Any unique sort of formats, challenges, that sort of stuff as you're looking at 2026?
Yeah, it's kind of weird to say that 2026 is almost like we're almost halfway through, which is, I know we're
Right.
not, but I'm in my brain it like I've got 2 programs between now and the end of May, and then, summer to fall, and it gets busy. I'm super excited though. I've got a group that's in December, that it's a home services group I've worked with for the last 3 or 4 years now. And we've had it at the same venue the last 2 years, and now we're going to a new one. So it's like building a new event for them,
Okay.
and kind of figure out how to level up from what we've done the last 2 years at one of my favorite hotels. And now we're at a new one. So it's really that fun challenge, honestly. Like, I'm actually excited to kind of reinvent the wheel a little bit and to just continue to make this event a success with them.
Amazing. I mean, again, like you said, 3+ years with GoGather. What advice would you give? I'm going to ask you about a couple of different people or personas, right? The folks that we work with. First of all, what advice would you give sort of that internal meeting planner that's just been tasked with a major program? Where do you start?
I would start by getting organized and trying to figure out, those like key value proposition goals. Like, what is this event all about? What am I trying to accomplish? And try not to get too overwhelmed by all the different to-do list tasks. It's all broken down into like, get the major key things in place, and then all the chips will fall. And a lot of that does happen when you find your vendor partners and you find all these different, connections that you can use. But it is a lot at the onset, I know. So it's just kind of like taking that deep breath and just make it manageable for yourself.
Amazing. And then one more that we get this question a lot. What advice would you give folks who are looking to break into the industry, right? Being a party planner is fun, right?
It's fun. Yes. It comes with, I think there's something about this industry that is so attractive and so unique in the sense of the travel and the things that we get to see and experience. But definitely, know yourself. I think this industry is made for people that like things a certain way and want to see their project through, and just know that, there are times where you are very stressed and tired, and that's kind of the nature of the beast. But at the end of that tunnel, it could be the most rewarding feeling in the world. And so just not to lose that, because I feel like it can be hard sometimes, but it's always worthwhile. And especially if you have a great team around you and you get to experience it together. Like, I kind of describe it as summer camp. Like, I feel like every event I do, I have like 7 new best friends, and then, you get to do it all over again, hopefully another time. So it can be really special.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, thank you, Shannon, so much for kind of sharing this behind the scenes look at the work that goes into these programs and the passion that's behind it. We're so lucky to have you as part of the team. And yeah, absolutely looking forward to a great 2026. To anybody listening, thanks for joining us as well. We look forward to sharing more conversations with Shannon and other folks around the Gather Gurus podcast. Check us out at www.gogather.com, and we look forward to more future episodes of the Gather Gurus. Thank you.
Thank you.